To the Veterans Impact Show, continuing the mission
Beautiful.
of service and bringing together our civilian and military communities. Brought to you by Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Don't worry, retire happy and work with us. Great day to you. This is Campbell Ret, U.S. Navy veteran. I'm here with my partner, Chuck Wright, Marine Corps helicopter pilot. Probably one of the best veteran advocates of anything and everything in volunteers in North Texas. And Chuck, you serve on the Texas Veterans Commission Benefit Board as well, correct?
On the Fund for Veteran Assistance, yes. As a matter of fact, we're about to get busy. We're going to wind up reviewing over 100 grant requests to veteran service organizations and to nonprofits that serve veterans. It is not limited to VSOs. And we've got about $31 million that we get to spend. Sadly, none of it goes in my pocket, but that's that's just the way the system works.
It's just the way that works. Okay, today I've got a really exciting opportunity because since 2021, Diane and I have enjoyed a great organizational come together of the National Defense Series, and I've got the man who heads that up, Lieutenant General John H. Campbell. General Campbell, welcome today. John, what a beautiful day, and I'm so glad you're on board with us.
Morning, Jim. Chuck, thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm really looking forward to this.
General Campbell, one of the things, the National Defense Series has been so amazing. Some of the speakers and people you have had are just incredible. And you've got Fleet Admiral Fogo coming up this weekend. But would you tell us a little bit about your military background and how that you moved forward and came to putting together this National Defense Series? Please, sir.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. So, I spent 32 years in the Air Force. Not that I planned it that way, just having such a good time, I forgot to get out. But I grew up on a farm in Western Kentucky. My dad was a World War II B-17 pilot in POW, and he was not reluctant to talk about his experiences. So I grew up hearing the war stories and knew really from the time I was 10, I wanted to be a part of that. So I went through ROTC at the University of Kentucky and got a commission and went into pilot training. Plan A was just to stay in 4 years and get out and go with the airlines. Dad did not have a long career. He came back, was released from prison camp, came back, got his air medal, was promoted to first lieutenant discharge the same day. So wow. That was the extent of his career. So that was kind of my model. But then I got in the F-15 and loved the airplane, loved flying, loved the institution and the camaraderie, and had some wonderful assignments. And next thing you know, 32 years have passed, and boom, I'm retired.
Well, I wouldn't say you're retired because you're doing, and this is one of the things about our program. We want to showcase men and women like you who are taking the mission and going forward. Continue the mission, right, Chuck?
Charlie Mike.
And what you're doing for the community as a whole with the National Defense Series, I think is amazing. And some of the things I've learned have been really fantastic, and the people you've had. Tell us a little bit about how you were telling me before. How did that come together? And you were talking about a good friend of ours, Epstein, and his idea. So yeah. Please tell us a little bit about that.
Well, NDBS, National Defense Briefing Series, NDBS for short, it's a joint effort of 5 organizations, so Air and Space Forces Association, and at the time we put it together,
website.
I was the president. The Navy League, Association of the U.S. Army, Military Order of the World Wars, and the Jewish War Veterans, and so we all knew each other, the presidents of those organizations, and one day we were having breakfast with Epstein and Bob Epstein, who's got 1,000 good ideas an hour. And Bob said, why don't we pool our efforts? Right. Got a UFO in the studio?
Yeah. There we go.
Sorry. We were trying we were trying to get your website up, and I'm trying to use hand signals. And every time I do that, I think of the Christmas with the Cranks movies where Tim Allen is doing all the hand signals with his wife, and then he goes, "Come on, that's SEAL stuff. You need." Sorry, we kind of got a little bit, but we've got the website up, so our audience can see it.
Yeah, is this the NDBS INC?
Yes,
sir.
So that's our website for the National Defense Briefing Series, and it really is a good website. Patty McCoy, who's the president of the AUSA, put that together. She just did a wonderful job. But the idea was, we all got our own programs, our own charities, but we got some common core things that we all support, including a strong military, education of the public on the military and on issues of importance to national security. And most importantly, support of servicemen and women, families, and veterans. So we got total over 2,500 members in the Dallas area. So we said, why don't we get together, pool our efforts, and try to produce something that's really value added to the community. And so the idea for NDBS was we'll do a quarterly program. We'll bring in really world-class speakers that you normally wouldn't get through your Rotary Club or your Kiwanis. And have an interactive program where the audience gets to ask questions and interact with the speakers. And Jim, you've seen those, know how that works. So we started that in June of 21, with Admiral Pat Walsh, who's a Fort Worth guy. He was the Vice Chief of Naval Operations and was the Commander of Pacific Fleet, and he did a program on China. In fact, if we can do this, if you let me share my screen.
Yes, please.
Does that work?
Yeah.
All right.
Nathaniel got you back, so go ahead and share your screen with us, please.
Yeah, looks like you've got to enable me to do that.
Well, we tried.
Oh, it's not flying? Okay, I'm sorry.
That's not the kind of thing you want to say to a pilot. It's not flying.
Hey, that's all right. I don't need that.
All right.
And then our second program, we started off, we said, let's look at the regional areas of the world where we have ongoing areas of concern. So we did China and Pacific with Admiral Walsh. Our second program was on the Middle East, and we had the ex-ambassador to Saudi Arabia and a gentleman from CIA that I knew. And by the way, I didn't tell you, but I ended my career at CIA for 3 years.
We were going to bring that up. That was one of the highlights of your career.
So we had a guy, Steve Slick, who now is down at UT Austin, but he was a chief of station in the Middle East and during a pretty critical time, and was on the National Security Council. Steve and Admiral Smith went through just a super program on the Middle East. Then we did Europe and Russia back in December of 21, which was really, the timing was pretty good because, 2 months later, the Russians rolled into Ukraine. So we had a good prep for that. We did, I didn't mention, we have our Defender of Freedom program. So our model is quarterly programs, but once a year, we'll award the Sam Johnson Defender of Freedom Award. That's named for Congressman Sam Johnson, who you probably know was a POW, 7-year POW, was a U.S. congressman for many years. In fact, served 60 years in the government in various capacities. So we awarded the first one of those to Scott Murray, and you guys know Scott Murray, I'm sure, who's just really devoted his career to military careers and veterans issues.
General, I just had him speak to Navy League and showed a video that he has put together from the MOWW, the people, and that was fantastic. He's a good friend of ours.
MOWW, for our listeners, is the Military Order of the World Wars.
Yep. And so I'm sorry for interrupting.
Jim loves his acronyms.
That's okay. I'm sorry I interrupted you. Please continue.
I was going to say, Scott, I can't thank Scott enough for what he's done. He is our moderator, our host for our programs. And I always say, Scott's a professional and makes us amateurs look good. So he's just been really forthcoming with his time and energy.
General Campbell, I
we
wanted to
did-
throw in a quick question. We've got the website up. Are these meetings, which are done quarterly, open to the public?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. We try to advertise them as widely as we can. We know we don't do as good a job at that as we should. So maybe at some point we can get some professional advice from you guys on how to widen our audience a little bit. We are reaching out now to our ROTC and Civil Air Patrol and Sea Cadets and things like that, because a lot of these programs are really, really good professional development for young folks who are maybe considering a military career.
And
So
I'm
we've got
going to throw
professional-
this out there. There is a cost for these. They do serve dinner generally. So it is a nice affair. I've been several times. I got to see the Middle East and Russia,
Yeah.
thanks to Jim and Diane. But was going to mention, I'll throw an option out there that we use for our golf tournament. And before you jump off the air, I want to talk about your Air Force Association golf tournament. But for now, we'll focus on this because this is really terrific for the community. But if you're listening, and say you're listening to us down in San Antonio, or because we're, as I say, we're not only international, we're intergalactic. We're sure there's some UFOs out there tuning in just for this show to learn about our military. But I'm the Marine on the show. I get to be irreverent and play with crayons. But I was going to say, if you want to support this, and it's a great organization, would you go on and buy a ticket and designate it for potentially an ROTC student, one of the recruiting officers in the area? These are held out in, I think you're technically in Fairview is where we physically actually meet, which is out by Lucas, just east of Allen, but it's basically in northeast DFW. So geographically, it might be a little difficult to get to, but if you want to support, buy a ticket and designate it for somebody that's either ROTC or active duty military to support both the organization and to bring more people into this. So I'm going to go ahead and reach out that way and overextend myself. Being a Marine, I asked for forgiveness, not permission. And then I wanted to give would you do the website? We had it up, but would you give our listeners the website?
Yeah, you bet. So it's NDBS INC. So National NDBS Incorporated, NDBSINC.org.
.org. Okay. Wanted to clarify that.
And thank you to Patty McCoy, who is Air Force and head of the AUSA. I'm a member of both organizations, AUSA and Navy League, but that's a great picture of a carrier and a Navy aircraft got taken off. I love that.
That's an F-18, by the way, Jim.
Thank you.
You just flunked aircraft recognition.
Well, no doubt about it.
So I got to share this quick story. General Campbell was at Randolph Air Force Base about the time I was finishing high school and starting college. But I'll tell you this story, and you'll remember this well. There was a little snack bar, and it was over by the east runway. And we would head over there because that also happened to be right next to the transient line. And I was kidding Jim about aircraft recognition, but even as a Air Force brat, we would drive over and see what aircraft were parked on the transient line. And I tell you what, one of the biggest deals was the first time we had an A-10 parked there. That aircraft was so ugly, it was pretty.
Is that why they call it the Warthog?
Indeed it is.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And General Campbell.
I remember that well, Chuck. Yeah. I saw my first F-15 there when I was an instructor pilot in the T-38.
Yep.
There ran off, and a couple guys came in cross country in F-15, did an afterburner takeoff and departure. I thought, man, that is so cool.
Yeah, and you've got over 3,500 flight hours according to your resume. That's pretty wonderful right there. Well, I'll tell you what, at least so you don't have any carrier traps. We're going to be right back in a minute with General John Campbell. Absolutely amazing part of the organization, president of the organization, that is putting on the National Defense Series. Go take a look. We're going to put the website back up. This is an important thing for the community, for the people in our area, but we're also going to be working with General Campbell and the team to get this out to where it's more national, and maybe we can have people from California and South Texas and San Antonio be able to tune in. So this is Jim Blythe and Chuck Wright. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show, and thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation.
Well, we've got a great guest today, but I've got to put in a little thing because I work for Fairway, and my MLS number is 311548, and the national number is 2189, and I do mortgage lending, so I am required to do that because Fairway is part of our sponsorship team. But I'm also somebody who has been really behind this National Defense Series and bought tables, and I believe in what we are doing as a team, as part of Navy League and AUSA, because when you were talking about the various and sundry speakers you had, you mentioned the deal about the group from Europe, or that talked about Europe a couple of years ago, and they predicted what was going to happen in the Ukraine almost to the exact minute. And I think that was amazing. They've also, you also had a group that talked about the South China Seas, as well as John Antal, who's a very good friend of ours. And these things prepare the public. These things give people insight that you normally wouldn't have. And this is open to the public. And it's very, very important. And so I'm going to encourage you to start. Maybe we can work with Murray Media or somebody to create a documentary of doing these things, because what is said in these defense briefings is truly amazing. So again, General Campbell, let's go forward and continue the conversation that we're talking about. So,
yeah, let me mention two things. Chuck, you mentioned the buying tickets, complimentary tickets for folks. We do that for our ROTC cadets. We've got sponsors that will buy tickets, and in addition, out of my own pocket, I say any cadet that shows up in uniform will give you $10 in cash. So you take a cadet that gets a free ticket, shows up in uniform, so he makes $10 on the trip.
I'll get that word to the Sea Cadets.
Bribery. That's how I work with my kid and my dog.
Hey, we're shameless about bribery. And the other thing I'll point out, if you go to the website, we have archives of pictures and still pictures and video from almost all of those presentations. There's one we didn't video, but so anybody who wants to go in there can look back and see what our speakers said. And as you point out, our Europe speakers pretty much predicted what was going to happen in Ukraine. So
that's been my favorite. After John Antal, we have to include John Antal in that, because if we don't, he won't come back on the show.
Yeah, he did a great job.
I have heard John Antal speak a dozen times, and he is a must listen on pretty much any topic. And the interesting thing, I was going to say this, we were talking about the macro view, if you will, of what was happening between Russia and the Ukraine, that as you said, the defense series very accurately predicted. But John's talk was really interesting because it got down to the micro, and he was focused on the Azerbaijan Armenian War, which was 4 days long, and the Armenians used Russian technology, and the other guys, because I can't say that word, used more modern technology, and it was absolutely amazing how effective they were. And I have to tell my favorite Sam Johnson story. I get a chance at the last meeting to go over and talk to, was it his daughter? Yes. It was his daughter.
Yeah.
I was Sam Johnson's. This is pure happenstance. It was not set up or planned this way. I was Sam Johnson's last constituent meeting.
That'll be darn.
Yeah. What a wonderful, wonderful man. Definitely one of, as an Air Force brat, and we were in Okinawa in the 60s, so the war was very, very near and dear to our hearts as kids. but the POWs were absolute heroes of ours. And I think they were the one thing at that point in time that America rallied behind. We were split on whether we needed to be in the war. Yeah.
It's worth mentioning that you didn't see much about it in the paper, which I was surprised, but 27th of January, 73 was the signing of the Paris Peace Accords, which 50 years ago, and that set the scene for return to the POWs.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's do. Let's continue this conversation when we come back from having all of our sponsors help support us. This is the Veterans Impact Show. We've got Lieutenant General John Campbell, and he has organized with a group of others, the Navy League, the Air Force Association, the U.S. Army Association, the Veterans of Jewish, I can't remember all the group, about 2,500 of us, into the National Defense Series. We are posting that. My wife, Diane, is doing a great job. If you have questions, send it to Diane on Facebook. Send it to us on the Veterans Impact Show. And Nathaniel, thank you for the engineering that's getting us down the road. This is the Veterans Impact Show. We'll be right back after these words.
Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show, and thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation.
Let me jump in right quick.
Go.
I wanted to say something for our Facebook and YouTube listeners and to explain. We take these breaks for our friends. We're talking about the No Bull Network, radio network down in South Texas. We're talking about our friends on TV out in California. We are broadcast over multiple levels of media. So we take the breaks for them to be able to shoot their commercials, but we're running pretty much nonstop for Facebook as our podcast. So we're very much a multimedia. And I want to shout out to the lovely Diane Blythe for keeping us on track. Nathaniel Smith with Ascend Podcasts, which is really a multimedia company, and he does a great job getting us out on the air and doing all of that good stuff. And I want to make a little bit of a change. I'm going to assume you are ready to talk about General Campbell, your work with the U.S. Air Force Association. Sorry, I have to think about all the letters. And you may or may not be ready to talk about your 2023 golf tournament.
Yeah, so thanks for the plug. We started our golf tournament. By the way, it's the Air and Space Forces Association, and we were the Air Force Association. And last year we brought in the Space Force, so we still use the AFA initials, but our official name is the Air and Space Forces Association. So we got our golf tournament coming up it's in October, I think, this year. We're going to move it out to Heritage Ranch Country Club, which is about also the venue for our National Defense Briefing Series. Heritage Ranch has just done a marvelous job of hosting this. They got a great facility, and we really like that place. Although, as you point out, it's a little bit out of the way, but it's worth the drive. But so we're shooting. I'd like to have 144 golfers there this year. We got Ross Fasolino running that, who was previously with the Veterans Center of North Texas, who, by the way, was one of your Texas Veterans Commission grant holders.
Grantees, yes, sir.
And they have changed hands, and so they're not going to do their tournament. So we've got Ross to do that. He's lining up some great sponsors. And the proceeds from that go to support our scholarship program, our contributions to the Wounded Airmen program, our contributions to local veterans groups, including Veterans Center of North Texas and the Veterans Resource Center down in South Dallas, and a number of other charities.
And as you know, that I'm a big fan of the Veteran Resource Center. And we thank you very much for those that support. Officially do that on the air.
Yeah.
So once again, the National Defense Series website, give us that, and then give us the, can I reach the golf tournament through that site?
No, but you can go, our site for our AFA is afadallas.org.
There we go. We've got it up For those watching, we've got it
Okay,
on the
cool.
screen right now. Very good.
Yeah, and that's there. You can get all the info about the golf tournament and our quarterly meetings and all the other stuff that we
Excellent.
do. I think the golf tournament info is up. It should be up, but we try to keep that updated, and that's where you can go in and get info and register. So NDBS INC is for the briefing series, and afadallas.org is for the our Air and Space Forces Association.
And for those that are listening, you can hop on our Facebook page, hop on our YouTube page. The lovely Miss Diane will be putting those sites up in the comments section to make it easy for you to find.
And I got to tell you, this really helps our community, in not only our military community but our civilian community as well, because the Air Force Association, the AUSA, Navy League. Matter of fact, Navy League is going to have their national convention in Dallas in June.
Yeah.
They do a lot to provide scholarships. We work with Sea Cadets. We work with the Marine Corps League, works with the Young Marines. I think there's an Air Force ROTC type component. These are really important, especially for young people today, where we've got so many single parent families. These organizations, these ROTC organizations that our organizations support, do so much. Diane and I are instructors with Sea Cadets because we believe in helping the next generation.
Absolutely.
And so all of this showcases what veterans are doing to help our community above and beyond, and doing more than just military, but in community development. And thank you, General Campbell. Let's continue, though, this conversation, Chuck.
Well, real fast, I wanted to ask General Campbell, does the Air Force have something similar to Young Marines or Sea Cadets?
Yeah, probably the closest thing, Chuck, is the Civil Air Patrol.
Okay.
And it's still, CAP has been around for a long, long time. It's actually now an official auxiliary of the Air Force, but that provides an opportunity for high school age kids to get involved in a military organization. They have a rank structure, and the neat part is they got a real mission. They do search and rescue missions. They do photography missions. Anytime there's disasters, they'll get out and take imagery of a disaster area. They've got programs to teach high school age guys and gals to fly. They can actually get their pilot's license. So it's a wonderful program, and we support CAP as well as our Air Force Junior ROTC programs.
And that's important, and I'm glad you said that because, well, one, you've got the opportunity to go in and potentially get your pilot's license, or at least get exposed to flying. And everybody on the show right now is an aviator of one style or another. And very proud of that. I'm actually a nasal radiator from way back. That's what we called them. So, but obviously, General Campbell has more flight hours than either of us combined. But the opportunity for young people, and this is an opportunity, and this is what I wanted to mention, it is not school unique. Whereas the JROTC programs, you've got to have a program at your school. Yep. But you can join the Civil Air Patrol regardless of what school you go to, and it's a terrific opportunity to get exposed. And as you said, General, so well, to absolutely contribute right now. And I think that's a huge thing, and I know this is one of Jim's favorite questions, but I'm going to steal it, and we're going to bring it up right now. Talk a little bit, and let's focus on the other end. Most of the show focuses on veterans, but let's talk about the younger generation and the opportunities that the military creates for them. And what would you say to a young person thinking about even considering joining the military?
Yeah, well, number one, one of my themes, longtime themes, is I think every citizen of the U.S. ought to be willing to contribute something, some part of their life to service, whether it's, who knows, whether it's military, whether it's Peace Corps, whether it's law enforcement, or something that gives back to the community. So, and then the other part is that military is such a opportunity for young people who haven't quite got it figured out. I mean, when I graduated from high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had college looking at me, and I knew I was going to go in ROTC. But a lot of kids don't. A lot of kids never have the structure, the mentoring, the leadership, the guidance that you get in the military. And sometimes it's it's tough love. But even if you only stay for 2 years or 4 years or whatever your commitment is, you come out of that a better person and a better citizen. And I've seen examples of that over and over. I have a step grandson right now who was not on the right path. Now he's a Marine officer, just a fine young man, and has got his life squared away. So it's
Marine officer and fine young man. That's a little redundant, isn't it?
Well, I've got a step grandson who's in the Marine Corps in Iwakuni, Japan, and I got to tell you, this was a tremendous thing for him. And for me, I went in because it was right in the Vietnam War, 1967. I went in out of college, didn't know what I wanted to do. It changed me. Excuse me. It changed me. And I then went back to college after the Navy. I think the military and boot camp is the best thing that could happen to any young person, man or woman.
Yeah.
I agree. It's disturbing to me, though, that if you look at the stats, so many young people today either because of past history or obesity or whatever. And so that's concerning, but it's such a wonderful institution to help guys and gals get their lives squared away and prepare them for success later on. And as you point out, you come out of the military motivated. You want to make something of your life, and you can build on that success.
Absolutely. And one of the things, and the word I should have used, we were talking about the Civil Air Patrol particularly, but you wind up with a sense of purpose. And I think that is, in the 21st century, the thing that our young people need the most is having that sense of purpose. I know my son is 19, and he's struggling with that right now because he doesn't have, and I know that, our friend J.P. Hogan. J.P. Hogan talks about having that North Star in your life, having that target that you're shooting for. And it's tough. It's tough out there to fight with video games and everything else for our young people. So to the young people listening, terrific opportunities. To everybody else, there's a tremendous number of things that you can do to support our veterans, and then indirectly support our kids. Oh, sorry, I had some weird noise.
You mentioned the Sea Cadets and CAP are not school specific. In fact, in CAP, we got a large number of homeschooled young men and women.
I think that's great. And Sea Cadets and the Young Marines drill on drill weekends at the Joint Reserve Base here in Dallas. And they drill throughout the United States, just like the reserves do. In many cases, they work alongside some of the reservists that are working. They learn all of the military things, and it's amazing. And I'll never forget meeting a young 12-year-old girl who came to one of our Navy League deals, and I was blown away. And I said, "How old are you?" And she goes, 12. I was like, good grief. This young lady is so squared away, and I got to tell you, Erwin is going to do great in life. And I talked with her father, and he's so proud of her. This is one of the things that I think is so important, this next generation, but also for our community, what you do, and we're being redundant, but the National Defense Series, that's important because I think we get so much fake news. We get so much news that doesn't make sense.
Yep.
And when you sit down and you have speakers like you coming up, and I want to talk about Admiral Fogo, and I want to talk about Heather in just a second, that's coming in this weekend.
So let me jump in real fast, Jim.
Yeah, please.
Before we go into that, I want to say something because we do have a national audience. Keep in mind that Civil Air Patrol, Sea Cadets, the Young Marines, these are all national programs. So I don't care where you are listening. You can Google any of that or Bing or whatever your favorite search engine is. to find more information about and become a part of that. That is not, we talk a lot about DFW because we're in DFW. We broadcast from the lovely downtown Frisco, Texas.
Yay!
I love my hometown, but we are talking about national style programs. So I wanted to throw that in, and I want to throw out a statistic that is absolutely amazing to me. While the percentage of Sea Cadets, young Marines, Civil Air Patrol kids that go into the military is relatively small, what is not small is their graduation rate from high school, which is another major problem in America. Their graduation rate is in the high 90s and is significantly higher than the average school population. So these programs are really critical. And let's talk about the next meeting of the National Defense Series.
You bet.
And General Campbell, I got to throw out a criticism because you guys have done this several times. Would somebody please look at the NFL schedule and not schedule Defense Series on nights that the Cowboys are playing or it's the conference championship games? I mean, come on, we're in Texas.
Well, I hated to wish the Cowboys bad luck against the 49ers, but had they won last week, they'd be playing tomorrow against. So anyway, I guess there's a silver lining there. But you're exactly right.
All right. Well, I tell you what, we're having a great time talking with Lieutenant General John Campbell, the National Defense Series briefing, as well as the Air Force and Airspace organization here in North Texas. This is Jim Blythe and Chuck Wright, and we want you to stick around. Join us on YouTube, subscribe to us, stay with us on Facebook, and share. Get this information out. Then we put up the website for the National Defense Series. Go take a look at what they have done and how they have had these tremendous speakers and what they've done for the community. So we're going to be right back to wrap up with General Campbell right after these words from all of our partners. This is the Veterans Impact Show.
Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show, and thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation.
I got to tell you, it's a great day here in Dallas talking with Lieutenant General John Campbell. 3,500 hours flying hot rods in the air, jet jockey. Man, I got to tell you, how fun is that? And what you have done in taking, I call it the fighter jock mentality, that you can rise above. Altitude equals attitude. You guys put together a great team to do this National Defense Series, and we've been talking about that. I'd love for you to talk just a second about, as we wrap up and I bring this program into the dock, General Admiral Fogo, Fleet Admiral Fogo and Heather, they're speakers for tomorrow's deal. Would you please tell us a little bit about that? And if people want to see the video of that, it will be posted on the National Defense Series briefing. So please tell us about that, sir.
Yeah, well, so this program is entitled Air and Naval Power of the 21st Century. And our thesis is that, both our air and naval forces are going to be leading the effort if we ever go to war in the Pacific. It's going to be a naval and an air war. And both those forces are undersized and under-resourced to take on the challenge they're going to have. If you read the National Defense Strategy, you'll see all the list of things they're supposed to do. So we're going to talk about that. We got two speakers. James Fogo goes by Jamie. Jamie Fogo was a Navy submariner. For most of his career, he ended up as the combatant commander for Europe and Africa. So he's got a long history of warfighting in the joint environment. Today, he's the dean of the Institute for Maritime Studies, which is part of the Navy League, sponsored by the Navy League. And he's a nice guy. I've talked to him, and he's got a great presentation set up to kick it off. Our other speaker is a lady named Heather Penny. She goes by, her call sign is Lucky. When she was a lieutenant, she was an F-16 pilot with the District of Columbia Guard, and she's got an incredible story of what happened on 9/11. I won't spoil it, but you can Google it and find it. Maybe she'll tell that story. Today, she's the senior analyst at the Mitchell Institute for Air Power Studies, which is an Air Force Association, Air and Space Forces Association think tank. So together, they're going to talk about our naval forces and our air forces and how they're prepared to handle the challenges today. And if they're not, what we need to do about it as citizens and taxpayers. So I think it's going to be a really exciting program, and I can't wait for it. It's tomorrow afternoon, by the way, at 4:30 at Heritage Ranch Country Club.
And then there you're going to post this on your website so our viewers in California and South Texas can take a look at it later. And man, I wish, we need to work with you to get this technology out there live so people can live stream it, because I think this is something that is of national importance and it really needs to get out there. Wouldn't you agree, Chuck?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We'd like to talk to you about that. You guys are the pros at this, and we can learn a lot from what you do.
Well, we're learning day by day because it's now a media world. It's not a radio. It's not a TV. Yeah. It's all of the things encompassing media, and that's changed just like everything else. But I think without a doubt, our American public, and I'm being redundant, needs to hear all of the facts from these experts that's not watered down or agendized and become basically propaganda versus being able to get the information that's needed. We have a tremendous threat right now in the South China Seas. We're seeing it play out in the Ukraine. So we need to be able to know about that as Americans. So my wife just told me we've got a couple of minutes left. General Campbell, I like to close this program with a prayer. So if you'll join me. Dear Lord, we thank you for protecting our airmen, our sailors, our Marines, our Army, our defenders of freedom around the world who stand in the breach to protect us. And we pray also for our first responders here and throughout the world that basically stand to protect us as well. Thank you, and thank you for our veterans and all they do in our community to further the cause of not only American freedom, but coming together. Thank you, and dear Lord, please bring this nation back together. Help us to work together. Help us to get stronger, because divided we fall. Together we can be tremendously powerful, regardless of our ideology. We're all on the same team. So, Lord God, we thank you in your holy name for being a part of this program. And thank you. Amen.
Amen.
General Campbell, it has been such a joy to have you on board. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And I got to tell you, we want to help you to take this to a national level, because this is an important program you guys have put together. So we're going to have a great day. You have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow night.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, General Campbell.
This has been the Veterans Impact Show. Subscribe, join us, share with us. Thank you for being on board.